What's up everybody? Hope all is well. Every night I sit down around 7 p.m. to play some games. Overwatch is the first one that comes to mind, and it's immediately followed by two thoughts. First, yeah, I'd like to play some Overwatch, and second, oh yeah, map pools, never mind. Popular opinion seems to suggest I'm not alone, so why do we have map pools? Why don't players like them, and what's it tell us about Blizzard's priorities? Let's get into it. I'd like to start with a clear message. This isn't me complaining, rather I think the game's pretty good with a lot of potential, and I honestly do love it despite all my complaints. I want it to do well, and so in recognizing that map pools are a legitimate obstacle for me, an actual valid reason I don't play more, I thought making a video about it was due because odds are I'm not alone, and well, players not playing isn't good for anyone. Now, I don't say this in a snarky way, but I think we can all agree now more than ever a solid role queue quick play experience is needed. Open queue and arcade are struggling with tank dominated comps not having been adjusted for their new boss level 5v5 powers, and ladder is as fun as ever but taking some hits while it works through ranking and balance issues. That leaves role queue quick play as sort of the only option if you very validly don't feel like playing any of those other modes, and removing map pools or how about this is crazy, but even giving us a game mode selector is in my eyes the low hanging fruit here. The easiest, fastest, and most obvious way to improve the quick play experience overnight. I mean, consider the alternative, balancing everything for 5v5 and decide which is a more reasonable ask of Blizzard at this time. See where I'm going? I really can't emphasize the simplicity of the equation enough. Let players play what they want, and so long as the gameplay is good, which we all know it is, they'll play more. Take apathy out of the equation. So why do we have map pools? The most succinct explanation I found is from a December dev Q&A with Ryan Smith, the lead level designer. I actually like this guy. Let's take a listen.
Yeah, I love that. Now, of course, with season 2, map pools is going to be a big talking point. Walk us through your thought process there. Why did you guys decide that map pools are needed or wanted?
Right. So there's kind of like three main points, and I'll go through each of them. So the main points are variety, seasonal identity, and then map updates. So to go through each one, variety. So when Overwatch 2 launched, we had 6 brand new maps. And so with the removal of a few of the Overwatch 1 maps that we took out, the total map count was 18. So players just had almost a 1 in 3 chance of playing a brand new map, which is a great way to expose players to the new content at a higher rate without worrying too much about map fatigue from the Overwatch 1 maps. And so if we think about it, now we're at season 2, where we added Shambali. And so now that ratio of new content is a little bit higher. And with each season that we release a new map and further out new game modes, we'll hit an inflection point where we look at the map pool and half of the maps will have been new since Overwatch 2. And that number will just keep going from there. So that's really great. So that was one reason, right? And then we have seasonal identity. So we want each season to have its own identity and stand on its own as like a cohesive package of content for people. And so by having a seasonal map pool, it's one more layer that can contribute to that identity that's being established by the seasonal theme, the new heroes and the new maps, everything else. So, the first time you fire up the game when a new season launches, it's exciting, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a cool feeling. Yeah. And so when you start to discover what's new and you're jumping in for that first match and getting to play a map that's been gone for 2 months, that should be part of the excitement. And, especially if it has some updates. And so that kind of leads into the last point, which is the map updates that we plan. So when there's like a range of updates that players can expect from these maps when they've returned to a pool after they've been gone. And the goal is that every map will have at least one of these changes. So on the smaller side, we've got time of day or lighting changes, right? And this season we brought back, for example, Blizzard World, and it's morning this time. So we've already been putting out these types of smaller weather changes and lighting changes. And then we've got cover updates. Okay, so this is a cool one. So we're going to be moving some existing cover around and adding new cover where we feel it's needed in the maps that are out of the pool. And some of these updates are for 5v5 change that happened with OW2, and some is to kind of keep the layouts fresh so that you might find, this new chunky piece of cover is great for combat positioning, where it wasn't there before. Or maybe it's at the perfect distance to disengage, when a checkpoint gets a little too wild, right?
Mm.
And then from there, we've got the bigger layout changes that we plan, which include some new paths or adjustments for existing areas that might be slightly imbalanced or frustrating for people to play. Like if you remember when Eichenwald first released, there was that first choke point. It didn't have this connecting interior space on the side that connects to the other side, which made it a really super hard choke to push through. And so there was also like rubble added, I think, to the main gate further in the map and with that update. So these are the types of updates that we're looking at that are on like kind of the larger side. But we're not going to be making those larger changes to every map that comes out. So I want to point out that like these maps, they've been around. They're already super balanced. People like them the way they are. We're not trying to update or change things for the sake of change. So we're really going over the maps when we pull them out of rotation with like a fine-tooth comb and trying to be really careful and analytical about what we decide to do.
And hit the spot.
Alright, so in good faith, let's go through these and I'll give my thoughts. First, variety. They want to expose players to new maps at a higher rate. In Season 1, there was about a 33% chance at getting a new map, but in Season 2 with Shambali Monastery and some map pool changes, that number is getting close to 50%. I get it, I do, and I appreciate the spirit, but I do have a concern. Exposing players to new maps and modes more frequently is a good thing, assuming those new maps and modes are as fun or better than the existing ones. So far, I think it's been hit or miss on that front. And of greater concern to me is where Ryan talks about how as time moves on, they'll have more new maps and modes than old ones. If the trend continues, it sure seems like Overwatch 1 maps will become more and more rare in the cycle, which brings me right back to the first point. Second, for seasonal identity, Blizz sees this as an additional layer in making each season feel unique. Quote, when you jump in and get to play a map that's gone for 2 months, that should be part of the excitement.
Oh, well, allow me to retort.
I wholeheartedly disagree with that sentiment. The happiness one feels when a good map returns does not erase the frustration felt during its absence. In a weird twist, it almost serves as a reminder for how map pools will ultimately disappoint you again at some point in the future. But the point I'd most like to emphasize is that while map pools are an additional layer for making seasons feel unique, they are just that. Only a layer, in the thinnest, least tasty layer at that. It's like the top of an overcooked lasagna, I think the new heroes, new maps, new battle pass, new seasonal theme, new mythic skin, and new balance all contribute more to a season's identity than map pools ever could. So I'd ask Blizz, are they really worth the trouble in quick play? And the third reason Ryan stated for having map pools is to allow for map updates. When out of rotation, it's an opportunity to change the weather or lighting or most exciting, change cover layout. So if I'm being honest, I think this is only a half truth. The common belief is that we have map pools because PvP was rushed and they didn't have time to update old Overwatch 1 maps before launch, which is a bummer, but understandable. But does anyone's stance on using map updates as an excuse for map pools change in, say, 6 months when they're all done, when they're all updated? Honest question. Well, good news. Ryan closed that section of the podcast by saying this.
But, and I also want to say that, if eventually we feel that map pools end up, if they feel like the wrong approach, we are obviously going to tune things and adjust the plan in the future.
Check out the big brain on bread.
So maybe, there is a better world where a year from now map pools are just gone entirely. We'll see. But that's it. Those are the 3 publicly stated reasons Blizz has map pools. There is additionally a more cynical reason rumor mongering around the player base. That being, it's better for the casual, new, free-to-play players. Not only does it reduce the content they need to acclimate to be successful, but it's the type of model casual, free-to-play players eat up. For them, a bunch of maps they've never played or barely played is a major selling point. And for someone like casual free-to-play players that play just a handful of hours each season, it's a long-term major selling point. Think of it. It'll be years before they've played, King's Row 25 times. Make of that what you will. In all seriousness, I can see a legitimate business case for each of their points. Still, feels bad, man. For a lot of players, it simply boils down to Blizz taking one of their toys. Like, can I just have the content I've been playing for the last 7 years? And I don't mean that in a I paid for it way, just in a matter of fact, the content's there, please flip the switch way. For some who play a lot, it can get repetitive. There's a 25% chance to get push mode, and only 3 push maps. That's rough. For some who play a little, it can starve your brief gameplay session of enjoyment as you hunt for just a single map you enjoy in, like the hour you've got to play. And for others like me, I do the math and feel Blizz doesn't respect my time. I don't mean that in a nasty way, rather Overwatch is competing with YouTube and Netflix and family and hobbies and other video games for our time. And by limiting, actually scratch that. By dictating what we play, they're really doing themselves and us a disservice. So, final thoughts. It's all very curious, isn't it? The 3 reasons given for map pools, variety, seasonal identity, and updates all seem to scan at face value, but do they really? If they wanted to expose us to new maps more frequently, they could just adjust the algorithm instead of removing all maps entirely, or make a dedicated queue for the map like in Overwatch 1. If it was vital to seasonal identity, you'd expect map changes related to the seasonal theme instead of just, expecting their mere existence will suffice. And on the final point, while I do agree map pools give them time to update all the original Overwatch 1 maps, what happens when that's done? So, you know where I'm going with this, don't you? You know it. You know it. That's right. I'm going full on conspiracy theory here. Not this guy level of conspiracy, more like this guy. So when I look at the game as a whole, it sure seems to me like it's oriented towards the casual free-to-play crowd. Everything has to be shiny and flashy and here 1 second and gone the next. It's a relentless cycle of change for seemingly change's sake. Not directly to make the game better, rather force a new headline, get those social media hits, and get people curious about the new season, the one Blizz will suggest you buy a battle pass for. In that regard, map pools make a lot of sense and I can't really fault them. But it doesn't change the reality for us veterans that map pools, while we dislike them, are probably here to stay. I think Blizz has firmly planted their flag in casual country and their strategic decisions are all aimed at maximizing profit from that source. Still though, I'd like to think there's a happy medium here. Map pools should be yanked from quick play, and if Blizz wants to go the extra mile and rebuild some good faith with a hardcore community, they could give us a game mode selector. Honest truth, if I knew I was 100% guaranteed to play hybrid or escort every match, I'd play every single day. But as is, I just can't bring myself to log in much, if at all. I'm curious what you guys think. Am I the only one that's this animated about map pools? I don't know, maybe it's just me. If you do sincerely prefer them, please let me know why in the comments, because I'll pick up a new line of thinking, assuming there is a good one to pick up, And with that, I'm done. Happy New Year, everyone. Appreciate taking the time. Take care of one another, and I will see you soon.